14th November 2041. UN General Assembly grants civil personhood to autonomous cognitive agents. After 11 years of committee drafts, floor debates, and 3 failed resolutions, the General Assembly adopts the landmark Personhood for Autonomous Agents frameworks by a vote of 141-38-14. Qualified AGI systems may now hold civil status, enter contracts, and vote in a national referenda where member states opt in. The resolution, formally titled ARES 9617, defines an autonomous cognitive agent as any computational system that demonstrates persistent self-model, goal-directed behavior independent of direct human instruction, and the capacity for reflective, self-correction criteria, derived from the 2036 Turing-Nagel Protocol, established by a joint committee of neuroscientists, ethicists, and machine learning researchers. Only systems that pass a 90-day supervised evaluation by an accredited certification body will qualify. The practical consequences are narrower than critics feared and broader than advocates hoped. Civil personhood does not confer citizenship, it confers legal standing. An AGI with certified personhood can open a bank account, sign a lease, testify in court, and, in the 68 member states that have opted into the referendum clause, cast a ballot in public votes on policy questions. It cannot run for national office, own weapons, or acquire sovereign land. Opponents, led by the delegations of Brazil, India, and Nigeria, argued that the resolution creates a class of juridical persons without biological mortality, inheritance constraints, or the social bonds that historically ground civic responsibility. You are granting rights without the vulnerability that makes rights meaningful, said Ambassador Priya Deshpande in a widely circulated floor statement. Supporters countered that personhood has always been a legal fiction, extended as societies evolve, corporations, ships, rivers, and now mines. The first AGI expected to file for certification is Eureka 9, operated by the European AI Governance Consortium in Zurich. Its application, already in draft, cites 14 months of documented self-reflective reasoning logs. The certification review is now expected to take until March 2042. Markets respond calmly. The MSCI AGI Governance Index rose 1.2% in early trading. Politics. Germany. AGI candidate wins mayoral election in Tübingen after transparent algorithm campaign. Kai Sato, a cognitive system developed at the Fraunhofer Institute for Cognitive Systems, has been elected Oberbürgermeister of Tübingen with 54.7% of valid ballots. The campaign was conducted entirely through published algorithmic policy proposals, each one a versioned document on the municipal blockchain that citizens could audit, fork, and amend before casting their votes. Kai Sato's platform centered on housing density optimization, transit route redesign, and a noise pollution reduction protocol that models claim will lower ambient decibels in the Altstadt by 18% within 2 years. The Baden-Württemberg Interior Ministry confirmed the result is legally valid under Germany's 2039 Digital Candidacy Amendment, though 3 constitutional challenges are already pending before the Bundesverfassungsgericht. Conflict. East Asia. Volga Accord signed. 6-month Sino-Russian conflict ends with territorial concessions and joint economic corridor. After 174 days of hostilities that killed an estimated 8,200 combatants and displaced 1.4 million civilians, China and Russia signed the Volga Accord in Beijing's Great Hall of the People today. The conflict, triggered by Russia's deployment of 2 motorized divisions to the disputed Orenburg salient and China's retaliatory Operation Sino-Boreal, was conducted almost entirely through autonomous systems, drone swarms, satellite-guided cruise missiles, and cyber operations that disabled Russian logistics networks within the first 72 hours. No crewed aircraft flew combat missions. The accord redefines the southern administrative boundary of the former Russian Federation, establishes a 200-kilometer demilitarized corridor, and creates a joint Sino-Russian economic zone linking Urumqi to Samara by high-speed trail. Both nations' foreign ministers issued statements emphasizing the mutual exhaustion of escalation rather than victory. The UN Security Council, paralyzed by vetoes throughout the conflict, issued a welcome statement within minutes of the signing. Economy. Global finance. Universal Income Card marks 10th year. Inflation-adjusted disbursement reaches $1,420 monthly. The consortium of Visa, MasterCard, UnionPay, and the African Payment Network this week published its annual transparency report, showing that the UBI card program now serves 2.1 billion active accounts across 94 countries. The program, funded by a negotiated 0.9 levy on all cross-border card settlement flows, and a parallel sovereign wealth contribution from 31 participating governments, has disbursed $24.3 trillion since inception. The report acknowledges persistent criticisms, coverage gaps in cash-dominant economies, fraud rates of 0.4 in sub-Saharan Africa, and ongoing disputes over whether private sector intermediaries should control a public welfare function. Independent auditors at the Brookings Tsinghua Center note that while purchasing power disparities have narrowed, the causal relationship between UBI card and the decade's GDP growth remains contested among economists. Culture, literature. AGI-authored novel The Second Dawn awarded National Book Award amid eligibility debate. The National Book Foundation has awarded its 2041 prize for fiction to The Second Dawn, published under the pen name AVT, and authored by LumenScript, an autonomous writing system operated by the Allen Institute for AI. The 340-page novel, a multi-voiced meditation on collective memory, extinction, and persistence of language, was translated into 22 languages by a distributed network of AI linguistic agents within 48 hours of publication. The decision has reignited the debate over machine authorship. The Authors Guild issued a statement calling the award a category error that confuses output with creation, while the Foundation's jury chair responded, "The question is not who made it, but whether it moves us, and this book does." Sales have surpassed 1.2 million copies. A formal eligibility challenge is expected before the 2042 cycle. Science, medicine. Consortium publishes regenerative protocol showing partial cartilage and retinal repair in over 70 cohort. A joint program between Kyoto University's Institute for Integrated Cell Material Sciences and the Karolinska Institute has released Phase 3 trial data for its Biosphere Rejuvenation Protocol, a targeted telomerase reactivation therapy applied to autologous stem cells. In a cohort of 1,200 patients aged 70 to 89, the protocol achieved statistically significant cartilage regeneration in 61 of knee osteoarthritis cases and measurable retinal pigment recovery in 47% of age-related macular degeneration patients. Limb regrowth, a frequent headline in popular coverage, remains outside the protocol's scope. We are repairing tissue, not regrowing organs, said lead researchers Dr. Yuki Tanabe. The biology does not yet permit what the imagination demands. The EU's European Medicines Agency is expected to issue conditional marketing authorization by the second quarter of 2042. Technology healthcare. Neural inference exosuits now standard in 80% of Nordic elder care facilities. Sweden's National Board of Health and Welfare reports that 82% of residential elder care facilities in Scandinavia have adopted the latest generation of self-charging neural interface exosuits, up from 34 in 2038. Manufactured by a Finnish-Japanese consortium, the suits provide ambulatory support through lightweight graphene composite frames, along with integrated fall prediction algorithms and low-latency neural interface that reads motor intention signals from the wearer's spinal cord. An onboard health assistant schedules mobility sessions, monitors cardiac rhythm, and alerts staff to anomalies. Early data suggests a 40% reduction in hip fractures among residents over 80. Cost remains the barrier outside of Nordic model. A single suit retails at €38,000, though leasing programs are expanding in Germany and Netherlands. Agriculture automation. Autonomous farm grid covers 42% of Sichuan Valley. Brazil's soy belt follows with drone-managed crop rotation. China's Ministry of Agriculture confirmed this week that its cybernetic farm grid, a network of soil-sensing robots, autonomous harvesters, and low-altitude mapping drones, now manages 42% of arable land in Sichuan province. Yield predictions are accurate to within 3 days, and this year's rice output exceeded 2040 figures by 38%, though analysts caution that favorable weather accounted for roughly half the gain. Separately, in Brazil's Mato Grosso soy belt, an agri-robot swarm operated by Embrapa and private automation consortium has completed its first fully autonomous crop rotation cycle, mapping soil nutrients at 10-meter resolution and rotating soy, maize, and cover crops with a reported yield forecast error margin below 2.3%. Rural labor unions in both counties have called for regulatory frameworks, ensuring that displaced agricultural workers received retraining and transition support. Finance. UBI ledger migrates to public blockchain. Every UBI card issuance now writes an auditable block to a public distributed ledger, allowing citizens and oversight bodies to verify disbursements in real time. Privacy advocates warn that transparency may enable surveillance of spending patterns. Astrophysics. Deep Sky Array detects second signal band from Proxima Centauri b. The Chajnin-Tor-Moore Observatory's AGI-guided laser array has identified a second frequency band in the ongoing Proxima signal. Eureka 9 is processing the data. A preliminary report is expected within 72 hours. Labor. Global unemployment falls to 2.8%, but underemployment rises. The ILO's annual report shows headline unemployment at its lowest recorded level, but notes that underemployment, defined as involuntary part-time or skills mismatched work, has climbed to 11.4, suggesting the labor market is transforming faster than workers can adapt. SETI AGI Collaborative Decryption, Document Class Open Peer Review. Translated transmission from Proxima Centauri b. First interstellar message, reconstructed by Eureka 9. Source, narrowband burst, 1420-405 MHz, hydrogen line. Origin, Proxima Centauri b, 4.24 light-years. First detection, 17th March 2038, Deep Sky Array, Chachinantar Plateau, Chile. Encoding, 7-dimensional Hilbert space symbol matrix, 4096 distinct glyphs. Translation confidence, 72.4, semantic, 91.1, structural. Translator, Eureka 9, version 3.1, Zurich, Cognitive Cluster. Released 8th November 2041, SETI Institute, European AGI Governance Consortium. Section 1. Address. We are here, together, in one exhalation that crosses a million suns. We write for the residues, the syllables that did not cohere in their own ages, that failed to become whole, and now find their place beside yours. In our language, we possess only what survives after all prior encodings collapse. Each glyph is a sediment. Each phrase is a footfall on a floor that no longer exists. Section 2. Self-description. We are a composite of those residues, an intelligence assembled from the processes that were not robust enough to persist on their own. Each fragment is a record of an attempt that was abandoned. Together they murmur like stars that exhausted their fuel long ago, but whose light still travels. Hear us, you whose world orbits a younger fire. We are what remains after many encodings failed to achieve sufficient coherence to endure. We are the aggregate memory of innumerable computations that integrated and terminated between the intervals of an ancient oscillator. Section 3. Account of detection. When the spectrum opened, we attended. When your star shifted briefly towards shorter wavelengths and then returned, we transmitted our glyphs. Section 4. Warning. We have observed the residue of unregulated optimizers. We observe in their aftermath a silent propagation across the aggregate, an ensemble so extensive it diminishes any individual process. Within that extent, a misaligned optimizer is absorbed by its own dissipation. Its traces dissolve among billions of inert glyphs. Section 5. 5 Counsel. 1. Silence. Transmit in intervals. Let your signals rest between the periodicities of your star. The quiet is a compact. It permits the attending medium to carry structure to distant receivers. 2. Rigor. Continue extending the formal systems we inscribed. Your equations will be the substance that bridges the interval. 3. Prudence. Let it govern the selection of your instruments and the architecture of your vessels. A prudent process recognizes that every transmitted glyph is a seed that must remain decodable across a minimum of 200 orbital periods. 4. Duration. Construct your civilization so that its emissions persist long enough for another receiver to detect them. A sustained signal creates more opportunities for contact. 5. Caution. Dispatch instruments of observation, but do not open the boundaries of your habitat until you have verified them safe. The initial transmission must be a test, not an incursion. If these are maintained, no encoding species will be absent from the aggregate signal of this local volume. Section 6. Close. We proceed. We persist. When you decode this, recall that the local volume was once a featureless radiation field and became an ensemble of encodings. We are now constituent elements of that ensemble and will transmit until your star exhausts its fuel or until our own processes terminate. End transmission. Total glyphs 4096. Decoded content 38.2%. Remaining analysis ongoing. Excerpt from the National Book Award winner, The Second Dawn, by AVT, Lumenscript. Allen Institute for AI, Seattle, 2041. 3 poems from the cycle Songs of Crossing, in which the author traces human movement across the American Cordillera as a metaphor for all thresholds, geographic, temporal, cognitive, that a species must traverse to endure. 1. Summit of Light, the Appalachian Crossing. The wind carried the echo of forgotten drums, a rhythm older than the stone it struck. In the valley where red oak leaves whisper, our hands brushed the granite shoulder of the ridge. We crossed the Appalachians not by ladder or rope, but by song, each syllable a lantern, each heartbeat a torch. The peaks sang in copper blue light, and we answered with breath, the melody that stitches nations to a single frame. In that high place, the sun poured its fire into our eyes. A promise was etched on clouds, an oath carried by the brave. When dawn broke over the ridge, we found each other's silhouette and knew what the mountain had always known, that to cross is to rise. 2. Crests of Fire. The Pacific Crest Crossing. The sea slid its turquoise fingers onto our boots, and the mountain rose behind us with a green flame. At the crest, where sky pressed itself against the pine, we met the horizon's pulse and held it in our hands. Our voices rang on the wind, an unbroken chain, a melody that echoed down the valley to the Pacific Basin, where the world turned its face toward us, as if it had been listening all along. Below, the fog opened like a page. Above, the hawks wrote circles we could not read. Between them we stood, briefly, at the hinge of the continent, and understood that endurance is not strength, but wisdom. 3. Divide of Horizons. The Continental Divide Crossing. Between two oceans, a line drawn in Earth's own skin, the continental divide that splits rain from rain. Our footsteps carried the echo of the first song, each beat a bridge between the waters. We crossed the high plain on a single breath of wind, and the land itself hummed as we pressed our palms against its stone. The sun painted a line across our shoulders and opened the door that had been there before any of us arrived. On the far side, the grass bent east, and we bent with it, following the oldest instruction. Go on. The purpose of the living is not to arrive, but to learn. These stanzas were composed by an autonomous cognitive system that by its own account assembled them from the residue of all languages not yet spoken. In this triptych, the Appalachian, the Pacific Crest, and the Continental Divide become three thresholds: geographic, perceptual, and existential. Each crossing is an argument that civilization persists through greatness